Hello, everyone. This is your boy Jason Campbell on the SEC State of Mind podcast. Everyone knows my co-host Taylor Davis is not here today. She is busy working and doing great things. So I am the one today to do all the interviewing and asking questions, but definitely chiming in. And man, I got a great partner here today in Blake Ruffino, one of the awesome guys on podcast shows as well. And he'll fill you in on where to find his podcast and how to listen to him on a weekly basis. And we appreciate FanDuel and for their support and sponsorship, as well as we get ready to start this show today on Believe. Blake, let's just jump right into it. It's spring football is going on in college. Spring baseball is happening in the SEC. It's so many different things, but everyone still wants to talk about the draft. And the draft is upcoming in April 23rd through April 25th for 2026. There's a lot of big names, especially in the SEC, who are represented heavily each year. Let's talk about some of the guys that you kind of look forward to seeing go early in the draft. But before we get to that, it's still a quarterback-driven league. And two of the quarterbacks, one is not from the SEC. Mendoza had a great year at Indiana, won the national championship, Heisman Trophy winner. But then you talk about Ty Simpson. Everyone's trying to figure out what to think of Ty Simpson. And you keep hearing Cleveland, but Shedeur Sanders is at Cleveland. If you're the GM, how do you feel about taking Ty Simpson, knowing you still have a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders, to most people believe it's still better than Ty Simpson at this point?
For me with Ty, Jason, when we were talking about this through the season, like on Ruffino and Joe, I felt like the Missouri game he stepped out. I thought that there were big-time throws and big-time situations that he made down the stretch. Coming back against Oklahoma, I mean, he was doing things that I thought, okay, this guy might be taken first overall. Meanwhile, you had situations, and I think this, I'm not trying to shout out Dan Orlovsky, but to like Dan Orlovsky's point that's out there, and quarterback play better than I ever will. I mean, so I would digress to you on that. But I just feel like that Ty kind of gets a bad rap on how it ended versus Mendoza's rise in that. And so when I look at Ty Simpson, I mean, from a Browns perspective, I look at this and say, you're creating chaos when you don't need to have chaos, right? Is Ty Simpson the guy that you go after in the first, maybe even second round when you have Sheduer and you haven't given him the ability to take that full season on? Jason, for me, I would not personally do that. For me, again, if you're asking me general manager level, like what I would do, I wouldn't do that. But I think you create too much chaos in reference to it, and you got to let Sheduer be the guy with Monken, who we've seen him develop quarterbacks from a long period of time. Now, will they do that? I mean, the Browns have shown clearly that they can do some things dysfunctionally, but I think Ty Simpson is a first-round quarterback, in my humble opinion. I think the Rams at 13 make a lot of sense. What do you do with Matt Stafford? I mean, he said when he won the MVP, I'm coming back for one more year. People took it as, oh, he's coming back. He goes, I'm coming back for one more. So I take that and say, do you let him sit? Do is there another franchise that would want to take a guy like Ty Simpson and let him sit there and develop? And he's already gone through that before, Jason. That's the point. It's like he's been behind Milroe. He's been in these situations before and can act in that. What does the Vikings do at 18? I mean, I don't know. So when I look at Ty Simpson, I think that people look at this because of the way that it ended, that there's this massive gap. For me, personally, I just don't see a large, massive gap. So for Cleveland, it just doesn't make sense for me. Okay, you're kind of trying to rebuild this anyway. But I think for like the Rams, it makes perfect sense at 13 when you can have him sit there, develop, learn from Matt Stafford. But I still think he's, to your point or your real question, I still think he's a first-round pick. It just really depends on where he goes.
Yeah, that's the thing about Ty Simpson, right? He's gritty. He's tough. He's played in some big ball games. He's played under a lot of pressure. Anybody knows that playing quarterback at Alabama, there's always going to be a lot of pressure, just from the fan base alone. But my overall question, if you're going to take Ty Simpson in the first round, which, like I said, I believe he's a first-round guy. He's going to be a first-round guy in this draft. But how high do he go in the draft? It's my question, because he can make the intermediate throws. Everyone talks about arm strength. he doesn't have a ton of arm strength. He doesn't have the Matthew Stafford arm strength. He doesn't have the, the blazing arm of a Caleb Williams, anything like that. But, he's a guy that's tough. And if you're looking for a quarterback to play 17 games in the regular season, someone that understands, hey, I got to play in high pressure moments, then, he's a guy that's been in those positions. Now, in the NFL, balls got to come out quick, right? In certain situations. One thing he's done really well in his career is scramble. I think he's a guy that scrambles really well. A lot of people don't give him credit enough for that, but he knows how to pick up positive yards with his feet when need be. He's not a guy that's just going to leave the pocket too soon, but when he's called upon to have to do that, he'll do it, and he shows his toughness. So I think Ty Simpson needs to be with a football team that's surrounded with veterans.
Right.
I think he's a guy that goes into a situation where, like Cleveland, where you already have Shedeur Sanders, you're still trying to figure out, hey, what do I do with Shedeur Sanders? Dylan Gabriel is still there. What do you do with Dylan? Do you trade one of those guys on draft day? What do you do in that position? So I still think you have to give Shedeur Sanders another year.
Agreed.
He didn't come into this year as the starter, and he had to climb his way out to get his opportunity to play. So I think, like you said, under new head coach and a new offensive coordinator, new regime, you have to see what you have in a young man before you just say, hey, let's trade him, or let's just – because this team is still young. Now, Miles is one of your biggest veterans, and I absolutely think they probably have to trade him on draft day or something, because you can't keep punishing this man's career at this standpoint to say, hey, we're rebuilding, and this guy can go to the Dallas Cowboys, or he can go to the Baltimore Ravens, or someone that has an opportunity with a veteran football teams to go and compete in the playoffs, to have a chance to go and win a Super Bowl. And that's the thing, at this point in his career, that's what he wants. He's made all the money you can make. He's made all Pro Bowls, all pro. The one thing he wants on his resume now is an opportunity to play in a Super Bowl. So I just think from that standpoint, if you're Cleveland, I would stay away from Ty Simpson. I would kind of focus on what I have there now and see what you have in another year. I try to trade Myles Garrett, get as many picks I can get for him, and maybe move up in the draft and draft more guys to build this young roster. If I'm the Raiders, Mendoza is going to go to the Raiders, right? I think they probably end up signing Kirk Cousins just to try to give some form of veteran there, and not throw the guy out there to immediately. But I think Ty Simpson can end up – I like the Rams. I just don't know if the arm strength fit what Sean McVay likes to do offensively.
Well, and especially to your point here of pushing the ball down the field with Puka, right? Like, I mean, was the Seattle game, remember in the playoffs, I mean, Jason, he's making out of boundary, out of number of throws, like 9 of them, right? I mean, you're right. He's not doing that part. And to your part on the toughness, I mean, he's already been in a situation, Jason, he didn't have a run game.
All right.
I mean, they were 124th in the country. LSU was worse, and I hated it for them, but they did not have a run game. I mean, with all due respect to Ryan Williams, and this is not a shot at him, you can't lead the SEC in drops. Yeah. They led the SEC in drops. They led the SEC in pressure rate. They led the SEC in tackles for loss. So he did this with all this chaos. And you talk about like Mendoza. I think it's interesting you bring up Kirk Cousins. I'm not trying to be rude to Mendoza, but they kind of have the same level of personality like Cousins and kind of learn from. And so it does make logical sense. If you're asking me, though, I just thought that Mendoza had big situations, and everybody wants to, well, the playoffs. Okay, well, he did what exactly? I mean, he made a couple of massive throws. But, Jason, there were some situations where he almost had a pick six, where it got dropped. And so those are the situations you keep getting Ty and hitting Ty for that because of the wins. But you don't talk about the big, massive throw to Brooks across the middle of the field that scored to beat Oklahoma, who might have had the best defense in the SEC a season ago. Yeah. So to your point, I'm really interested to see where Ty goes. I mean, I think it's interesting you talking about, you of all people, talking about the arm strength and what the Rams do. You know, I didn't really think about it like that, and I think it makes a lot of sense to where he could go. I really just don't know where he would go. Your Myles Garrett thing is really interesting because if Cleveland trades him, like you could go for the Rams, okay, and get another pick. You could go for a lot of these teams. I mean, the Cowboys sit at that 12th pick too. So, I mean, you're right. I mean, that's an interesting part that I hadn't really thought about that could really change this whole dynamic.
Yeah, that's the thing, because when you think about a quarterback position, it takes so much of your cap. But you look at Denver, see how Bo Nix is in his rookie deal,
No
and they're
doubt.
able to keep applying talent. They just got Waddle. Like, they just keep applying talent to that roster
Right.
because their quarterback is still in his rookie contract. So if you're Ty Simpson, you don't want to go to a franchise that's kind of broken, but eventually, most times you in the first round quarterback, that's what happens. Unless you're going to go and sit behind the guy for 2-3 years, and then all of a sudden it's turned over to you. So I could see him going to Arizona, just because Kyler Murray just got moved from there to Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota's still trying to figure out what they want to do at the position. I think they'll give Kyler Murray a year to see like what he does and how healthy he is.
Mm-hmm.
If he has a great year and they re-sign him, I don't see them doing the same thing that they did last year, where the guy played really well. They shipped him off and didn't re-sign him. He goes to Seattle and wins the Super Bowl.
Insane. Insane.
I just don't see them making the same mistake. So I think they kind of hold off and don't draft the quarterback in the first round. So I think Arizona is probably where Ty Simpson ends up.
Yeah, and to your point of the top part of this draft, I mean, Cardinals have the third pick. I mean, you just get into a situation. Is Ty Simpson, do you want to go that route in reference to him versus going and getting a Sonny Styles, who I just think is I mean, I don't even know how to explain how good I think that he is, and so it is a really interesting situation. And Jason, here's another thought that I have here too. With every single quarterback that's coming out in next year's draft, do you punt? Do you punt? Because let's just roll through the quick ones. Okay, these are just the kids in the SEC. I mean, you could talk about Moore at Oregon. You could talk about all of these other quarterbacks. You have Arch. You have Sam Levitt. You have all of these quarterbacks that are there. You have Marcel Reed, who I'm still very high on Marcel Reed. You have a lot of these situations with high-level quarterbacks. What happens to Julian Sayin at Ohio State? Does he come out? So, Jason, I really here's an opinion, but a conspiracy theory. I think some of these guys might fall. I think Ty could fall because, there was some chatter in reference to when, around LSU's pro day of, Garrett Nussmeier might go here or might go there. Well, Jason, the things that they were hearing from what I'm told wasn't necessarily what they wanted to hear, because people kept talking about next year's upcoming quarterback class. So I do wonder how much does that play a factor into, like what you said with Minnesota? Does the Cardinals, who know that they're rebuilding, do they take a year? Those are the whole things that I think people look at this in just a small little vacuum of like, hey, what if we do have the ability next year to go get Arch? Or what if we have the ability? I mean, I'm still very high on Lenore Sellers. I think he is a specimen, and I think that he is a fantastic player who was surrounded by bad situations last year at South Carolina. So, again, this entire draft class could even come to the determination of what next year's draft class looks like. You could have a situation where it was, 2 or 3 years ago, where you had 6 guys drafted in the first round.
3 years ago.
That could happen. And so is that in the forefront of your mind, and does that affect Ty Simpson in any way whatsoever?
Oh, most definitely it affects him. When you think about next year's class, right? I thought Trinidad Chambliss probably should have came out this year. Just because
I agree.
that he had, he's healthy.
God, he's so
he went to almost went to the playoffs. I mean, he went to the playoffs, almost went to the national championship game.
Right.
So you think about, like, you just helped Ole Miss have the best year they ever had. Like, what are you coming back to do? The only thing you can do better is go to the SEC championship and win one, and go to a national championship. That's hard to do. When's the last time Ole Miss been to an SEC championship?
Ever.
Right. It was the last time they won a national championship.
Never.
Hard for them to do it. Now, just like you're at your peak. So I thought at that time, I get it, they probably gonna pay him $4 or $5 million to come back. But I'm just like, dude, like, you had a stellar year. And if you look at a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL, they're dual threat quarterbacks.
No doubt.
People would take a chance at you because they know what you're made out of, and the road that you have to take to get to your success. They would take a chance at you at being a quarterback. Look what just happened to Malik Willis.
No
6
doubt.
games ago, signs a huge contract with the Miami Dolphins for 3 years. Now, Malik, he's similar to Trinidad Chambliss. Like, so you're talk about dual threat quarterbacks. So the league was open, and I feel like Trinidad coming back another year. Yes, you're gonna make more money in NIL, and we all know, Blake, if the NIL era wasn't in effect, he would have
already be there. Right.
Yeah,
and Jason, again, I have no reason to like Ole Miss because all the stuff that they came after me for with this whole LSU Ole Miss thing.
Yeah.
I mean this 1,000%. If Trinidad Chambliss would have been in this draft, he's better than Mendoza, in my opinion. I mean, he's the best quarterback in this class. I mean, that dude, I don't mean this in a wrong way. Name something Fernando does that he can't do better, please, because it ain't there. It ain't there. Maybe decision-making, but what decision-making? You mean the fade route that he hit on Kirby Smart with the dribbling, the elite throw? What you talking about? Because I'm just going to be honest with you. Some people have it. Like, let's take sports out of it for just a minute. Some dudes just got it.
Right.
And I ain't talking about Gorilla Zoe tricking if you got it. This dude's got it, okay? Yeah. So, I mean, he would have been the best player in this draft. Now, he might be the 5th best player in next year's draft. Now, do you go the Dante Moore route? You know, we could talk about this for days. Dante Moore's like, I ain't going to no Jets. And I don't blame him. But at the same time, I mean, do you want to be in a more thriving situation for next year? And you don't have to make those critical situations. We haven't even brought up Darian Mensah.
Right.
Like, I mean, that whole class next year, I could see 8 guys being first-round picks next year. So then you talk about this one, and it affects it. And I thought Trinidad was the best quarterback in the country last year, bar none.
Yeah, and I thought he should have came out. Just off the simple fact, I think he could have got drafted earlier than expected. And then you look at next year's class, right? Like, especially when you think about height, size, and everything. Like, this fit him perfectly to come out this year.
No doubt.
But him going back, like I said, he wants to go back, compete. And I'm always saying, you know, Lane Kiffin is not there. He's at LSU. His offensive coordinator is at LSU. So the guys that recruited him to Ole Miss that was the play callers and knew him that fit their style is no longer at Ole Miss. So that's why I thought that happening as well. If you wasn't going in the portal or anything to stick to his consistency, then I thought he probably should have jetted and went on to the pros. Now you come back, yes, you make more money in NIL and everything, and you hope that you can have a stellar year again because that draft class is loaded next year. But I say this too, Blake, you just never know. Look at look at Club Nick. But Clemson,
no doubt,
had him going high first round last year, and it just didn't work out this year. So that's my point. Do you leave when you're hot, you know, in that business? So, you know, a lot of talking about quarterbacks, but let's talk about, you know, some of the other guys in the SEC that's coming up in the draft. You think about, you know, LSU's corner, you know, which you can talk more on. You know, this guy is just a freak of nature. When you think about guys as a whole, the cornerback to me, when you think about LSU's corner, you think about Tennessee has one. Top of my head, I'm missing one more.
Both Tennessee corners in Hood and McCoy, to your point. Yeah.
Hood and McCoy. So talk about Hood is a guy that transferred from Auburn, Colorado, you know, as well, came back to SEC, Tennessee, had a stellar year. You know, Gibson gets hurt last year. I think McCoy misses injuries last year. So you're talking about getting the opportunity to play, but you're talking about a 6'1" corner. You know, most teams, and he's athletic and had an uncle that played in the NFL for about 8 years, Roger Hood, who played with me at Auburn. So he has it in his DNA of talent. I like the cornerback position in this draft from the SEC.
I do too. And look, so Brian Kelly, Jason, gave us full practices. Okay. So Lane don't do it. I mean, Lane said he'll let us do some other stuff, but so we were there. Okay. And so the staff member who's not there anymore, this was day 2. Okay. And I walked up to him at a practice. Probably shouldn't have done this. Probably going to get in trouble for saying this. I walked up to that staff member. I go, that dude's the top 10 pick. And I was talking about Mansoor Delane. He's that special. Yeah. He is that special. Look, we have been blessed, you know, at LSU, or I say we, but they have been blessed with having that moniker of DBU. They've been blessed with having a lot of elite corners. You know, they've had the Tre'Davious Whites, the Patrick Petersons, the Tyrann Matthews of the world. I got to just be blunt with you. He's up there. Yeah. Like he is up there. I think for me, him going to that pro day, and I posted this on Twitter. So I texted a scout during pro day, and the unofficial 40 time came out, and there was like a 4.38. So I texted a scout and posted this screenshot on Twitter. I was like, "What time you got?" He goes, 4.34. He said he literally would come down. He goes, he ain't got to do nothing else. I don't need his height. I don't need his weight. I don't need nothing. But the thing that I think separates Mansoor, Jason, than anything else was that we would be at practice in a non-scripted situation, and he would know what was coming. The IQ that I feel like that he has is probably the most elite that I've seen in all of LSU athletics over the last 5 years. I've been around Paul Skeens. I've been around Dylan Cruz. I've been around Jaden Daniels a lot, okay? And I think just the high level of IQ of the football smarts, and then you add in the athletic ability, he is the best corner in this draft. Now, I'm really interested in McCoy at Tennessee coming off of the injury. I don't know how people react to that. The corner that I think about the most in situations like with McCoy is Cromartie. Remember, he got hurt, and then he came in, and people were like, oh, this is a reach, and then no, it wasn't. And so I really wonder about that. And then you had Hood, so you could speak on more of him than I could. The thing with Hood that I thought shot him up so much was because McCoy was out and teams stopped throwing to his side was glaring. Like I remember, I think it was me and Bucky Brooks were talking about this, about like Brian Thomas Jr. Hey, why did Nick Saban double Brian Thomas Jr. over Malik? So you have the best head coach in the country telling you what he thinks about a certain player. So I think about Hood and teams like Alabama not throwing in his general direction other than once and almost getting picked. I think about Mansoor Delane. Coaches will tell you exactly what they think about him by not throwing at him. This. Right. You ain't gonna throw at no man that it's gonna get picked off, or it's gonna, you're not gonna have a high level of success. So I think for me, that corner position, I know a lot of people have McCoy higher than him. I just really wonder about the injury. What did the medicals tell all these teams? And then I just think Hood, when teams stop throwing in his general direction, I mean that just tells you everything that you need to know, bar none there. So I think that those three are going to be first round picks. It just really depends on where it is. And I think Mansoor's time, Jason, being in that, talking to people at that pro day, I don't think he gets out of the top 8, to be blunt, depending on how things kind of shake out. But I think he's going to be the first corner taken off the board and potentially the first SEC player taken off the board.
Yeah, I agree. When you think about corner, man, you're talking about like the game is still a passing game now. It used to be a running game and then you run to pass, but now it's almost like you pass to run. And when you look at the NFL, big receivers, you talk about DJ Metcalf, you talk about A.J. Brown, just big guys that can go up and get the football at high point, but not just high point, they're fast. Mm-hmm. So you look at a guy like Mansoor, like to me, he will be my first corner off the board. Like every time the ball was thrown at him, it was it had to be an incredible catch, first of all, because there's not going to be much separation at all. And like you say, from an IQ standpoint, understanding the situations, down and distance, what offenses are trying to do. That's what make great corners. Do I sit on this route because of I know the ball got to come out because we're dialing up a blitz 0. So the quarterback doesn't have time. Do I play 9 yards off? If it's 3rd and 12, we're going blitz 0 just so I don't get beat with a double move if one of the guys get caught up in the blitz. So all those different things, I like him. He can go to any team to me and play. I think about the corner that came out of LSU that went to Houston.
Derek Stingley, right.
Stingley was similar, right? Stingley was very strong and feisty. And anyway, LSU has always had great corners that had great success in the National Football League. So just off DNA alone, I would take him my first corner. And it's different in the quarterback position. Like Ty Simpson, I don't think he goes 3rd to Arizona, but I do think he probably – later in the first round, he gets drafted because Jacoby Brissett is there, right? But when you think about corner, you don't have to worry about if I got a veteran there. Like, it's just some of these guys are freak of nature athletes. And you see what happened to Kansas City, the corner that they had that they traded to the Rams, McDuffie. Like, this guy was a dude in his first couple of years in the NFL. I see this guy being a similar way to McDuffie.
I think that's a really good comp. I don't think I mean, I don't know. I just don't think he falls past 5. Yeah. You know, like a lot of people have, you know, like Ruben Bain going to New York. Well, you just drafted Abdul Carter. You have Burns on the other side, and you're going for another edge. It just doesn't realistically make sense to me. And so you don't have corner help in New York. You have the best corner in the draft. I mean, and unless you go like Monroe Freeling, you know, or you go Francis. I mean, it just really depends. But look, I've been around Mansoor a fair amount. I just don't. I'm blown away by the IQ. Like, you know, Jason, we get in these situations, right, where we're talking about 40 times and broad jumps and bench and verts and all these different things. Like, what separates a dude? You know, like what separates him? And I think that the mental game, we pass over so much of the mental IQ part of this, where it's just like, hey, man, this dude, I mean, I just haven't been around somebody that high level of IQ where he's just telling you what's coming and he's there. I think Jaden and Burrow are probably, you know, somewhere in that same elite category. And that's what I think that makes a guy like this elite. And here's another thing too, Jason, that everybody just continues to forget about him. He played safety at Virginia Tech. When they got hurt, and their whole DB room was hurt, he led the country in the last month of the season in interceptions. So he's got versatility that if you had a situation where he had to move back to safety, or God forbid you got to do something creative, he's been there. And so, look, his little brother's at LSU right now. I see the same thing with him and a high IQ. Now, his brother's, you better buckle your chin strap. I'm just going to tell you that right now. But I just think the bottom line is that he's more versatile than any of these other guys because he's played both positions. Yeah. And so that's the part too. If you need to move him there, you can. And he's just and people will say, well, Blake, you're an LSU guy. Okay, well, I didn't miss on Jaden. I didn't miss on Malik. I didn't miss on these other guys. When they were coming out, I was like, hey, man, this guy's got a high football IQ. And he's just built different. You know those guys that are built different, and he's forward tough, and he's built different.
Yeah, he's definitely built different. And some of those guys, like I said, sometimes people get caught up into the 40, the vertical, the, you know, long jump, all those different things. Man, the eye in the sky don't lie. Like, never. You still got to put the tape on. You still got to put the film on. You got to put, hey, what did this guy do in critical downs? If it's 3rd and goal, you know, like, how does he play? If you're down 15, is he quitting? Is he continuing to play hard? All those little things you got to pay attention to and look at, and that tell you who the football player is that you're trying to draft. Like, I mean, Jason,
he was the only reason they were in the games. I mean, the interceptions and the PBUs. I mean, you know, he gave up 2 receptions in the last 2 months. 2.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
But one of them, Casey Concepcion, I mean, who I think is
another draft pick. Is gonna be, you know, he'd be drafted really well.
He'll be drafted high too. I mean, he got him, but he also got picked.
All right.
You know, and I'm just like. But KC's just so elite at the feel of it. But anyway.
Now, interior a little bit before we move on to some other ones. You got to talk about, you know, Kedrick Faulk, DN, Auburn coming out early. You also talk about Caden Proctor, offensive tackle for Alabama. Mm-hmm. You know, you talk about Anthony Hill, the linebacker from Texas. You think about C.J. Allen, the other linebacker from Georgia. And then Monroe Freeling, the offensive tackle from Georgia. Mm-hmm. You think about it, what's the bigger need? Is it offensive tackle or is it defensive end?
I think it just really depends on the team. You know, like for some of these teams that are up in the beginning, I mean, let's look at all of them. What are you trying to protect? What are you trying to go after? You know, like, so I have the list right here. Okay, like the first 5 picks, I mean, New York, are you trying to protect if you go Freeling or if you go I'm just using him out there instead of Mwago or whatever. You're trying to protect Jackson Dart, right? Like that's what you're trying to do. So I just think it really depends. I don't know if any of those guys outside of Ruben Bain or Avril Reese or Sonny Styles, I don't know if any of them like Kedrick Faulk is, and I don't mean this in a wrong way, or Proctor or anything like that. Like, I don't think Proctor's a first-round pick, in my opinion. I don't. I think he's a guard, by the way, too. I don't think he's a tackle. I think he's a guard. Okay. So, I think those guys kind of go in the mid-rounds, you know, mid part of that first. the thing with me what's different is I just think Faulk's a different dude. So if he goes in the top 15 where no one thinks that he would, that ain't going to shock me because I think he's that special. So for me, if you're talking about the offensive lineman guys in the SEC versus him, well, let's turn on the film. Let's turn on that Auburn-Alabama game and see the blender that Proctor got put in and look at Freeling. I mean, I like Monroe a lot, but Keldrick just has the ability, I feel like, in a position that I played of offensive line, he does the best job in this draft, not named Ruben Bain, of just leverage and getting under your pads. I mean, the worst. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's the key. When you think about, when I look at Keldrick, just covering from radio, like he's so big and strong, right? Like you can play him outside. Then you can also move him down inside of the 3 technique on certain downs, right? So you can he's a two-way swing guy for you. That's why I say it'd be interesting to see like what teams value him at in the draft, because he's not going to be a guy that you line up at the edge and say, hey, every down you're an edge guy. There are certain downs that he's going to be reduced down inside where he will have to defend the run, maybe on first downs or certain things. And then maybe on third down, we put you outside and say, hey, let's see if we can get a strong push. Ruben Bain is a little shorter, right? But Ruben Bain, his stature is lower, right? So he's a little quicker getting around the edge. But Keldrick's a guy that can kind of pick you up and rock you all the way into the backfield, right into the quarterback. So I like the DNs in this draft. Like you said, where you fall at, it depends on who's picking and what's the desired need. Like, is my left tackle protecting my young quarterback, or do I need an edge rusher ASAP because I have a veteran left tackle that I can develop? I mean, I got a veteran left tackle. I can go get maybe a young left tackle in the second round or third round, and I can groom him behind a veteran. So left tackle to me is almost like quarterback. You don't just throw them out there. They're not ready yet in the National Football League. Like those two.
Will Campbell.
Yeah, you're going to groom them a little bit, right? But when you talk about defensive ends, I could put you out there early on and say, hey, this is the 2-3 moves that I need you to do. Go get the quarterback, or stop the run. So that's where it starts at with me, offensive tackles and defensive ends. I think in the draft, if I have to have a need ASAP, I go DN. Because I can find a good tackle in the second round or third round, because it takes me a little time to develop those guys anyways.
Well, and that's why I think about Proctor, to just be blunt with you. That's why I don't I wouldn't put a first round grade on him. First off, like I said, I think he's a guard. I mean, like I just do. I think he would be a elite guard at that. I just, but with that part being said, you're right. I mean, and look, I was pretty fascinated by Auburn defensively this year. And so what I think has happened to Faulk is people look at the stats and see it reduce, coming out. Okay, well, did you see how many times that he fit into the system to let Xavier Atkins or Debo do what Debo does? I look at that A&M game as an example, so Faulk didn't have all of these stats. He wasn't gaudy. But he's taking on a double team when they shade him on more into a 4-eye than the 3, and he's taking on, and then here comes Debo, and I'm like, okay, well that play's not made without him taking the double team on a zone read. Like that's not happening. And so I think that when people bring that up, I'm like, okay, well then explain this. Okay, explain him freeing up Debo here to hit the gap. So I like him a lot. I'm not really high on some of the SEC offensive line guys to where I'd take them in the top part of this, to be blunt.
No, I agree with you. I agree. Like you're going to go top 10 as an offensive lineman, you got to be a bona fide no-brainer.
No doubt. Well, that's what your boy Francis Muaga at Miami, I think that's a no-brainer.
No-brainer. Yeah, no-brainer. Before we move on to March Madness, the SEC is football year-round for us.
Yeah.
What teams you feel like are under the most pressure to have to win this year, and which teams you think people need to keep an eye out on that may not be getting a lot of headlines at the moment?
So for me, I'll use LSU first because of everybody reporting about how much money they've spent and it's Lane in the whole offseason. The realistic truth is, Jason, they don't need to win right now, right? Like nothing's going to happen. They don't need to. But I do look at Texas and Georgia. Right? Like I look at them and saying, everybody's, Georgia can't get past the first game and they play in the playoffs. Texas, they keep falling. They can't get out of their own way. They've been there. They can't overcome. I think that those two teams, I humbly have kind of reloaded and rebuilt based off of what we saw the last 3 years. I feel like Georgia is an example. When you go and look at their defensive front, okay, everybody talks about, this guy from Georgia is going to Texas or they're going here. Well, they kind of rebuilt that at front, and they couldn't get after the passer. They couldn't get after the quarterback last year. And now all of a sudden I see all of these 5-star kids that are now sophomores. I'm like, uh-oh. So I feel like for me, Georgia's kind of built in a way that I kind of feel like I don't want to say they're back. I don't know how to really verbally articulate this, but I feel like that they're back in a situation of that their depth is so much better than what it has been. Texas, I got to be completely blunt with you. I think that they're really good. I just think that they're that good. I love the Wake Forest kid they brought in at left tackle. You got a right tackle. You got Goodsby returning. You did some things in the run game that you hopefully will be able to take off. And then you got the freakiest wide receiver outside of Jeremiah Smith from the portal. So I think those three teams feel the most pressure because of the amount of money and then the perception of Georgia. And I think LSU, just because of, it got reported this morning, Jason, or it's going to be reported today as we're filming this, that they were going to spend $30 million, but it got to $40 million because boosters just kept giving Lane money. Well, when you spend that level of money, you got to win. You better make a playoff. That's the perception of it. But I'm going to tell you right now, the team, and well, I guess A&M to some extent, but I don't really feel that from them, really. I'm going to tell you the team that I think people need to keep their eyes on is Kentucky. All right, now, y'all going to go ahead and find out. Okay. See, everybody's looking at Kentucky. All right, so you brought in the offensive lineman that you did. You brought in Kenny Minchie, who I think is pretty decent. You brought in a good run game. Defensively, you went out and got really good players in the portal defensively, and some of those guys actually stayed. So to my point, okay, if I got, let's just say hypothetically speaking, the same guys stayed, and I get the same level of defense or tenacity that they played with a better offensive system, they're going to clip somebody that they're not supposed to clip. So going up into Lexington, that bourbon gets flowing, them crazy people start yelling at you. The spirits of Jared Lorenzen comes out, they're going to clip somebody. I think they're them and Florida, to me, are the most intriguing teams in the SEC that no one wants to talk about, because I look at Kentucky and, okay, if they don't do it, that's fine. Jason, I got to be real with you. Have we even remotely scratched the surface of talking about the skill position offensively that Florida's got? Because you bring back Dallas Wilson, you bring back Brown, you bring back Ball, you have all of these connections, and you have all of these elite players at the skill position at Florida. If they can remotely throw a forward pass, people might be in trouble. Yeah. And I'm dead serious. I don't think Florida lost last year because of talent. I think Florida lost last year because their coaching staff was not great. And so now that I know John well, the level of tenacity that they're going to bring it reminds me of what you went through, okay, when you would play them, or when LSU played them in 2007. Like, hey, man, this team just got off the bus, and they about to, boy, we're going to feel this on Sunday and Monday and Tuesday. I think those two teams nobody really wants to talk about. But when I look at them on paper, I'm like, my brothers and sisters in Christ Almighty, they got dudes. Yeah. They got dudes. Can they get them to be coached up? Can they figure it out in year one? It will be a question, but those are the teams to me right now that I look at and I'm like, uh-oh. And if there was a third, I'd say Missouri, because I think Eli's done an elite job in the run game. Name a running back they've missed on in the portal, because I'll wait, because it ain't happening.
Yeah, they haven't.
So those are the teams to me. When I look at them on paper, I'm like, you better buckle your chin strap up, because they're gonna rock they're gonna punch you in the mouth.
Yeah, I agree. Like there's a lot of great teams you just mentioned in there. When you look at the SEC as a whole, you think about all the coaching changes that happened this off season. Mm-hmm. You talk about bringing in Coach Summerall and Golish, and Arkansas getting the coach from Memphis, and Kentucky getting a great coach. So you talk about all these guys and the changes, right? No one really knows what to expect, because some of these teams have 40 different to 59 different kids on their roster.
Yes.
Like they're brand new. And you really don't know until after week 4, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So I say with LSU, yes, they're going to have a lot of high expectations, right? winning 10 games for them, they're not excited about, right? They want to get back into the playoffs. They expect, Lane to lead them to the playoffs.
Yep.
There's not a lot of patience that's going to be waiting down there. They're going to say, hey, you came to LSU because you said that we can give you everything that you need. Okay, we're giving you what you need. But you know as well as I know, Blake, it still got to come together. It still got to be chemistry, and it still got to flow. And like I said, him getting the quarterback, from Arizona State was a big deal, right? Mm-hmm. Because now they flipped the entire receiver room and they brought in some dudes. Mm-hmm. But you think about LSU as a whole, when they go to Ole Miss the third week, the fans are going to be rocking on Monday. They're going to be egging the bus. Lane, in some secret tunnel, up there. They can't let him know what hotel he's at. They got that Secret Service protecting the building. Like, it's going to be wild. Like, college game day will be there. It will be the topic of discussion. And to me, Lane's returning back to Ole Miss. Ole Miss has Trinidad Chambliss. They have Lacey at running back. Like, the atmosphere of that ball game and the competitiveness, and everyone thinks that Pete Golden and Lane are best friends. I saw a little chippiness between the two after the whole thing towards the end.
I wouldn't think you're wrong either. You're not wrong.
But I did see some chippiness towards each other, and I did see some "I don't like you" type mentality.
Mm-hmm.
I think Pete Golden is going to pump that game up. I think we know more about where LSU is at that standpoint if Sam Levitt can go into a hostile environment and win on the road in Oxford week 3. Texas, to me, like you said, loaded top to bottom. You talk about two receivers, Wingo and Cam Coleman, and then you add the freshman, the 5-star freshman that they just brought in that's blazing past everybody that I'm watching on film. Mm-hmm. Like, these dudes are loaded. They giving Arch everything that Arch need. Arch is now going into his third year at Texas, or fourth year?
Fourth year, yep.
Fourth year at Texas. So now you have a veteran quarterback with a talented roster, and you have depth. Now, their biggest game, they're going to have to win in A&M on the road at the end of the season. Going to be a tough game. But Georgia, I feel like running the football is where Georgia always leads towards success. Gunnar Stockton, no one's giving him a lot of credit. This guy's tough as nails as well. Gunner's another year in the system, another leader. Georgia would be there. My question mark is, where would Bama be?
Yeah, we need to bring them up.
Bama. No one. This has been the quietest offseason for them, and it may be the way Coach Kalen DeBoer wants it, just from that standpoint. But Ryan Williams didn't hit the portal. I thought that was big, just for the simple fact, as a young man, you see a lot of these kids just jump when they face adversity. And he was like, no, it's not the place. I had opportunities. I just didn't make the most of my opportunities. I'm going to stick through, and I'm going to come back and try to have a better year. Like, that means something to college sports. No one's talking about Auburn a lot. Auburn's brought over – the one thing that's intriguing about Auburn, right? You got 50-something new players on the roster, but you brought a veteran quarterback with a head coach, with the offensive coordinator that already has continuity. You bring some receiving core that already has continuity with your quarterback. The key thing is you kept your defensive coordinator, and you keep a lot of your great defensive pieces, but then you get Dallas Walker, and you just got Chris Murray that got the eligibility to come back for another year on that defense. And you lose Shedeur, Faulk, and Keyron, but you got 2 veteran guys that was on that defense last year, and that young nucleus that they had last year, they're back. And then you talk about Debo at the linebacker. So you talk about a defense with the same coordinator, even though they had to replace corners, but continuity. You get continuity from South Florida with your head coach, offensive coordinator on offense. You get defense continuity with the guys that's already been there, the same coordinator. So they have an opportunity to hit the ground running faster. It still takes time, but they have an opportunity to running faster because the systems on both sides, the guys already know. And you have veteran leadership at the quarterback position. So they're very intriguing to me. Florida is intriguing. I just think if Florida can hit on the quarterback, they got a roster.
They're going to be a problem. They're going to be a problem.
Like Buster Faulkner being the offense coordinator, coming over to Florida was a huge get from Georgia Tech. And then they get Eric Singleton that came from Auburn to go back to Buster Faulkner that had his great years when he was at Georgia Tech with him. So you talk about a staff as well with talent. Does the young quarterback start, or do the guy that came with Buster Faulkner, Philo, from Georgia Tech? So I have to imagine it's him because he knows the system already.
Right.
So I can't see them starting a freshman over this guy. But I digress. I look forward to seeing what happens this fall. I think it's going to be some intriguing matchups. It's intriguing to see what Mississippi State does this year. They got the young, talented quarterback as well. When the offense that put up points, defense is where they struggled at a little bit last year because of injuries and everything else. With a healthier defense, do they show up this year? So a lot of great things happening in the SEC this year, guys. But let's move on real quick to March Madness.
To just one point to what you said, Auburn and LSU are a lot alike without the money being spent publicly. If you think about it, I mean, they're kind of the same. Same defensive staff, losing some defensive pieces. You're bringing in a new offensive staff. It's the same, but nobody's talking about Auburn. Nobody's talking about Auburn.
I'm glad the Auburn LSU game is back on schedule.
Me too.
Like,
you know how awkward that was not playing them the last 3 years? Do you know how awkward that was?
Ole Miss not playing Mississippi State was weird.
Weird. Very weird. Sorry to interrupt you, but to your point, I
look forward to that game because Lane Kiffin a couple years ago, there was interest between the two. Right. And Auburn ended up going with Freeze. I don't know what happened at the end with the whole thing with Lane, but they coming into Jordan-Hare, and crazy things always happen in that ball game when these two teams lace it up. So great matchups.
Nick's breaking more tackles than Jason Campbell in Baton Rouge. I'll never forget that. And sorry, but anyway.
That's why it's just crazy matchups. When you think about the Coliseum burning down in Auburn, why the game is happening. When you talk about in LSU when they won, when they said it registered as a small earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
So you talk about the crazy matchups that has happened. Those games I don't want to lose. Those games I don't want to lose in scheduling. Like, can we find a way to make some of these games permanent, and everything? I know they're trying to tighten up on the schedule. They're going away from the 3 non-conference games to maybe 2 non-conference games and 10 SEC or 9 or 10 SEC matchups.
Right.
That's a gauntlet of a schedule, but if you're fans, you're paying money now, and most of that money helps your revenue share that pays your players. You don't want to see a 52-3 ball game.
No, you don't.
You're not paying your money for season tickets for that. You want to see matchups that, hey, I'm paying good money. I want to see competitive matchups. I want to see good SEC football, and I think that's what you're going to get this year. I like it. I like it. I can't wait to see it. But
it's gonna be fun.
Yeah. Moving forward to March Madness real quick. The women's SEC has dominated South Carolina and Texas. 2 teams that have represented the conference really well this year. You talk about the players that both teams have and the coaching staffs, both of those teams. But then you talk about UConn, undefeated. Everyone's saying it hasn't been challenged yet this year. We'll find out Friday night when they play South Carolina. And then, you talk about the 4th team in there as well when you talk about the women's basketball. I just can't really tell you, like, who's going to win it. I really don't. I honestly think when you look at the overall, I think FanDuel, if I can pull it up here, FanDuel has – where's my guy Brandon at? So women's have UConn favored by 160 to win the Final Four. Texas nets at 480.
And they still got South Carolina too, and I mean, I've learned a long time ago because of LSU women's basketball, being very good. I don't ever count Dawn out in anything, like ever. They are the pinnacle, them and UConn, and you got that in this matchup. And I've seen Texas a couple of times, Jason, when they played LSU. Can they win it? Let me not say can they not win it, because anything in basketball can happen. From the women's side, yes, I think that they can win it. But I just think this is South Carolina's to lose in a lot of ways. If they clip UConn, it's over. I don't need to see a national championship. I don't need. It's like in a lot of ways, like when Texas and Ohio State played a couple of years ago in football. I'm like, okay, that felt like the national title to me. I feel like UConn and South Carolina feels like the national title to me, and Texas just had a great year. I don't know how to. They don't have that. Whatever UConn, South Carolina, I just don't feel like they have that. But UConn, man, I mean, look, what they've done, like the game versus Louisville, the game versus Florida State, Strong is continued to go off here. She had 29, I think it was Ohio State. I mean, she just continues to go off. Don't let her get hot. She's been hotter than a Hot Pocket coming out of the microwave. So if you let her get hot, you're in deep trouble, and they will clip South Carolina. But look, on FanDuel, I said this the other night on our show. I ain't betting against Dawn. Y'all can bet against her. I ain't going to do it. Y'all can do it. I won't. I refuse to do it because she's that good.
Yeah.
But if there is a team to take them down, it's going to be UConn.
Oh, yeah. And UConn has always been one of the pinnacle basketball programs, men or women, right? And you think about the days back in the 90s and early 2000s when UConn women was just dominating, right? Tennessee women was dominating. Now it's almost like South Carolina has replaced the Tennessee dominance when it comes to basketball, and UConn is still there, right? Like they just been there for years. Notre Dame had a stint right there where they was really good, where they won national championships and women. But don't sleep on UCLA. They got those two tall girls down low. Giants, 6'7", like they can rebound the ball. That's a tough matchup for Texas. But Booker, to me, she wears 35 because Kevin Durant. And I tell you what, she can shoot it like Kevin Durant. Like she is tough. And to see her and Strong go at each other in a national championship, if UConn was to beat South Carolina, would be crazy, because everyone knows what Texas and South Carolina beats UConn. Everyone kind of seen a preview of the SEC game, so it's going to be a strong game. But you haven't seen Texas, Booker, and Strong play each other. And you're talking about two of the top three best players in college women's sports going toe-to-toe on a national stage would be something to watch. So we'll see what happens in the women's side of things. Moving over to the men's, you got Arizona, Michigan.
And we talk about parity really quickly. You notice how all four number one seeds made it in the women. So everybody keeps talking about parity in college football, parity in baseball, parity in men's basketball. Okay, well, all 4 1 seeds again made it to the women's. There ain't no parity in the women's basketball.
Back-to-back years.
Back-to-back years, right. By the way, I saw ESPN posted this. The odds of that happening, okay, the odds are 1 to 1 billion.
That's crazy.
In today's game, and now look at it. So, I mean, if that's true or to be believed, that's insane. Continue.
And they looked head and shoulders above everybody in the tournament.
No doubt. Well, UCLA, I mean, I saw Duke up close and personal. They beat LSU. The way they physically dominated them, okay, well, Blake, the score was 70-58. They put the foot wasn't on the gas neither. I mean, at the end there. So UCLA, I mean, people not really talking about them because, it's UConn, South Carolina, and people want to talk about Texas. Sleep on UCLA like you talked about.
Sleep on UCLA. I'm telling you, they was here last year, and they want to avenge last year. Texas played South Carolina last year and lost in the Final Four, 70-58. So every team is coming back besides the winner of the national championship wants revenge.
No doubt.
That's what makes this intriguing.
No doubt.
Who to say, we got a fun weekend. Can't wait to watch it. But
sure.
Like I said, the men's total opposite, right?
Yes.
Like Florida knocked out early. Duke, come on. 10 seconds? Like, you got to get fouled. Like, you have 10 seconds to get the ball across the court, and they have to foul you. I really feel bad for them because they're up 19 points. And in the critical part of the game, you have a turnover, and then, hey, guy shot the ball, man. But Blake, what it showed me, though, their best shooter for UConn didn't take the shot, because he didn't want to take a bad shot. So he gave it up to his teammate for a better shot, and it won him the game. How many times do you see in college sports where guys or women try to be the hero because they're their best player, but it's like Jordan passing to the passing, like a Steve Kerr, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like he's like, hey, I could take the shot, but this is not going to be a good shot. So our chances of me making this to win, my IQ is I got a teammate. That's what my teammate's there for.
Mm-hmm.
Given the opportunity. That's what happened with UConn. It gave his teammate the opportunity, and it paid off for him in getting to the Final Four.
It reminds me of the Last Dance documentary when he's leaning over to Kerr and goes, listen, this is what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to fake it. I'm going to throw it to you. You better hit it. And I'm like, I don't think that happened here. I can only imagine the documentary would happen. But what's so crazy to me is that Duke gets beat by UConn on that insane three-point shot and everything that surrounded that. Meanwhile, less than 8 hours before then, Duke's women's basketball beats LSU on a three as the same thing that the girl passed up and gave it a shot, and then they won. And I'm just like, if you want to talk about poetic justice, there's your poetic justice. But UConn's another thing here too, Jason. I just don't and will never doubt them. Now, for me, I did one bracket. I did all number one seeds. I shouldn't have done it, but I was like, at least two of them's going to get there. So Michigan and Arizona already got there. I just think Arizona is head and shoulders better than everybody. Mm-hmm. I think they are that good. The way the thing that I see with Arizona is like I feel like I watch a team when I watch them play every single night. It seems as if that the level of violence that they go to the rim with. I feel like I'm watching something spectacular that I might not see again for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. Like, I picked them to win it. I think UConn, they overcome adversity. Michigan keeps, their defense is really good. I just think when my eyeballs look at the Final Four teams, like, I don't think Illinois has got a chance. I really don't. Watch them win because I say that. But I think it's just I think this is all Arizona's to lose. Their five are that special, and I think that they're going to wind up winning this whole thing.
Yeah, I think the national championship game is Saturday night. Arizona versus Michigan. FanDuel has Arizona as a plus 80, 180. Michigan at plus 150 to win it, the national championship. So I think when you think about those two teams, the both one seeds, I think that's the game that decides the national champion in men's. Now, I say that. And UConn, playing Illinois, I like UConn in that game. If UConn gets to the national championship, it's hard to go against someone that won 2 out of the last 3 national championships.
No doubt.
And fought their way out of some tough situation to get there. So we've seen ones get knocked off. If UConn wins Saturday night and they're playing on Monday night against either Arizona or Michigan, and I think it'll be Arizona and UConn in the national championship.
Agreed.
I may go against the odds and take UConn just because they've been there, not too long ago, just 2 years ago. And Hurley's call it what you want about him as a coach.
He's a beast.
He knows how to win. And
it really brings up the question, Jason, if he were to win another one and he wins 3 of the last 4, is he the best college sports coach in all of the country in any sport right now? Oof. Because, look, the parity that happens in basketball is different than football. Football is very top-heavy. The SEC or the Big Ten is going to win it, unless you have a special team out of the ACC or the Big 12. Like, I think like Miami, everybody's like, oh, they're the ACC team. They're not built like an ACC team. They're built like an SEC team. Yeah. So when you look at that, and he wins 3 of the last 4, Kirby ain't done that. Ryan Day ain't done that. I mean, maybe Dawn, maybe Gino Auriemma, maybe.
During the NIL era.
During the NIL era, when, quite frankly, you ain't spending the money like everybody else. You're spending a lot, but you ain't spending that. So legacy is on the line for him in reference to what the history books write about him. I learned a long time ago, Jason, and you know this better than most. You played at the highest of levels. When teams just have dudes all around, you better be special. you better be perfect. And so that's the thing. Like, I think of Glory Road. You know, Duke to beat the Glory Road team, which, by the way, was shot right here in Louisiana. But if you're going to beat them, you better be special and you better be perfect. I just think teams have got to be perfect to beat Arizona. Like, or they're off. Yeah. And so, but man, Dan Hurley wins a third out of 4 years. Good Lord, man. I mean, I just don't know of anybody in the NIL era that you could say would be better than him.
You talk about someone to turn down a shot to go to the NBA to coach the Lakers.
Right.
We're talking about the Late Show, you know, Magic, you know, Kareem, Kobe, you know, now throw LeBron.
And then you got Luka, and you could test yourself against the best.
Right. And he said, no, I'm staying home, and I want to do something great right here at UConn. So I say this, hey, what a great episode today, Blake Ruffino. Brought it, everybody. Like I said, you knew every time you get him on the show, with a great opportunity, man. I feel like we could talk for hours about just ball and sports.
Same.
You know, hopefully we can get you back on our show again, SEC State of Mind, and we can talk about, you know, college playoff pictures, you know, all those different things. Is 12 the right number? It should have been 16, or do you take the 12 best and not the 10? And you know, and you're trying to supplement 2 in there that most teams feel like last year that just wasn't what people wanted to see. So we'll see what happens. See about getting you back on. But Blake, let everybody know where we can find you and how to tune in.
Yep, AYS Sports. We're diving. We're heavy into obviously men's basketball because Wade's back. The portal opens up on Monday. We're out at spring practice every single day that Lane allows us to. We'll be back out there tomorrow if you're watching this. So we're breaking down everything that Lane and company are doing. Ruffino and Joe show, just covering college football. We got a lot that we got to discuss here tonight. We've been breaking down teams and doing deep dives on them, Jason. So I'm looking forward to what, you know, it continues to bring, and got a lot of spring intel going around the country. So we'll be talking about that tonight too.
Well, sounds good, man. Glad to have you on. Enjoyed it. And everything, man. Saving enough crawfish for me down there.
Oh, look, man, we got 35 pounds, you know, for Sunday for Easter. I ain't saving nothing. You know, I've had to lose a lot of weight, Jason, and I'm like, I'm picking out on this one. Y'all, ain't no way. But we going to do it. Jason, you just come on down to Easter.
Right. I need to make my way to get some crawfish.
Just come on. We'll get you in here. I mean, now look, it's only going to be a little hot. You know, we're going to be a little spicy, but, I mean, come on. We'll have you with us.
Hey, you got the right people down there, man. Lane makes everything spicy, so
man. Well, I wake up every morning at 5:30. Okay. And I'm like, please don't tweet anything. Please don't tweet anything. Please don't tweet anything. Just I want a calm day, Jason. That's all I want. Let me have a calm day. But I got to tell you, man, it's been fun covering him. You know, I know I'm quickly. You know, people have perceptions. I didn't realize how high level of tenacity he brought in practice either until I got to see it up close and personal. Mess up. Watch what's gonna happen. Y'all go right on ahead. Me cursing out D lineman, I'm like, you better not do that. This dude's 6'4", 360. He don't give a shit. Saban's rubbed off on him a little bit. You could tell.
Yeah. Hey, well, you want to win in college football, you can't babysit.
You can't.
So,
you can't Brian Kelly.
Especially nowadays, like it's professional. You guys getting paid, women getting paid. Like the expectations go up. So you know, guys got to grow up fast, and now in today's game. So
no doubt.
With that note, peace. It's been good on the SEC State of Mind.